What's going on, NEM crew, and welcome back.
The Datsun is here again.
Like always, but it's been a while and we're sorry for that, but we're bringing you guys another Datsun video. If you guys saw a vlog that we posted not too long ago, the link will be in the description for that if you want to check it out. I was going over diagnosing a turn signal issue that we had. So the Datsun, after we did the welding, does not have turn signals now. So we're gonna bring you through our diagnosis and our fix on that.
Let's do it.
All right guys, we're in the car now and we're just gonna go visually inspect everything, make sure everything's good for the wiring that leads to the signal switch itself. Now we did have all the wiring harness disconnected when we did the welding, just because we didn't want to burn anything or have any issues with that. So we're just going to go and see if there's anything obvious that we can find that we think could be causing an issue. So let's get into that.
So this is the wiring for the signal switch here. The wires look good. Another good thing to do is to disconnect the connectors and inspect for any kind of green gunk going on for bad connections. But everything looks good and it feels tight. You want to make sure the connector goes in tight. It's not loose or falling out easily. Another thing we did notice though is the signal switch itself doesn't spring back easily and it's very gummed up. You can see there's a lot of dust on here.
It's just rusty too.
Kind of rusty and gummed up. So what I think we should probably check for is make sure we got our power and ground at the signal switch. Like everything is working from there. So the vehicle is supplying ground and power to the signal switch. If that's good, then we know that our issue is most likely the signal switch itself or in this short bit of wire going to it. So
is it possible it could be a relay as well or no?
it could be. If we notice that we're not getting proper ground or power at going to this, let's say we have, for example, no power going to it. Okay, then we know for sure we shouldn't be starting with the signal switch. We should be inspecting why we don't have power.
So right now Anthony's just going to hit this hazard switch when I let him know. Go for it. So as you can see, the hazard lights are activating the signals. So we know that part of the circuit is functional and it's working up front as well. So that's another thing that we can cross off the list.
The tool that we're going to use to make our quick checks is called a power probe. There might be different variations of this tool around, but this brand is called Power Probe. What this thing is going to allow us to do is it's going to let us supply power and ground to a component or circuit. In this case, we're going to do the circuit. And it will give you quick checks too. If you just rest this up against a terminal of a wire, or you know if you have power or ground there, or if there's nothing there, it's a quick check. It's not going to tell you if you have a perfect connection, but it's really good for just kind of finding out where you need to go when you're diagnosing things. Another thing I want to point out too is when you're using this, if you're testing a circuit in the car, you want to be connected to the battery that is in the car, which we have set up right now. If you were, let's say, supplying power or ground to a component that is not installed in the vehicle or disconnected from the vehicle, you can have it connected to any old battery. As long as it could be a battery on the ground, as long as it's a 12-volt battery for a car, you can use this to do that. All right guys, so this is our connector going to our switch. This is the connector that goes to the body of the car, the harness, that we need to make sure that all that wiring is good. So we're going to be looking for a power and some grounds. So let's take a look and see what these terminals are doing. So as you can see, it lights up green for negative. That's a ground. We have another ground and another ground. That one does nothing right now, so that could be the supply. Most likely another supply. And there's our battery voltage. So the switch probably gets one wire battery voltage. These two are probably your left and your right turn signals, so coming out of the switch. And these are your grounds, most likely. We don't have access to a wiring diagram, but we can kind of paint a picture of how the circuit should go. So let's plug this in now. These terminals make it really easy for us to back probe. So what that means is you can stick your terminal into the connector while it's plugged in because there's nice access and you can see what the circuit's doing while it's connected. So let's do that again. Turn the key on.
Are they working?
It's working. What do we do?
I don't know.
So we're gonna take, I think what we need to do is, that verifies that the circuit going to it, the supply circuit and all that is good. But what that's telling us is there's a poor connection inside the switch. You can either replace the switch, or what we're probably gonna do is take the switch off, clean all the terminals, get the rust out of there, lubricate everything again, because it's supposed to be lubricated. Just keep dust out and keep everything moving properly.
Because what's happening too is the signal switch itself is supposed to spring back into the neutral position. But right now there's so much corrosion and rust in the switch itself that it's not allowing that. So we're going to clean everything up, and hopefully that allows for a better connection. It fixes the problem. We kind of lucked out with this situation. It didn't end up being a relay. It didn't end up being a flasher. And the switch itself seems to be semi-functional, so we're going to try and make it perfect. So let's go ahead and clean up this switch.
Alright guys, when you're installing the signal switch, you need to make sure that this little notch that comes out goes into its spot inside the steering column.
Show that again. No, show the signal switch again. Perfect.
Right there. Because what that does is that allows the signal switch to spring back, if it's working properly, when you turn the steering wheel back after you've made your turn. So in order to do that, you gotta kind of feel for it. It'll kind of fall into place. You'll know because you won't be able to move the signal switch. Kind of tricky. There, right there. See, now that it just kind of heard it clunk in, you can't spin the signal switch anymore. Then you grab your headlight switch, bring it around. Because what they kind of do is they come together and sandwich each other around the column.
And there's two Phillips screws.
Two Phillips screws, one at the top, one at the bottom. What I usually do is I like to just get one started. Very carefully, don't cross thread it. Just get it started to the point that it won't fall out of place.
Yeah, not a lot, just a little bit.
A little bit, so not super tight. And that will allow me to get the bottom one started.
And if you put the top one in too much, it might actually prevent you from lining up the bottom one.
Yeah, it'll spring back. It'll put pressure at the top, and it won't allow you to line up the bottom screw.
So just be aware of that.
So Now that the top screw's lined up, I can fully tighten the bottom and then go back and snug up the top. It's tight. And that's tight.
Last thing, button up your wiring.
Oh, that's so much smoother. So yeah, finally, just reconnect your wiring and test your system.
It's magic.
Yay!
That's it, guys.
Everything moves a lot smoother now.
And hopefully when we actually start driving, it will click
back.
back into the neutral position. But that will be for a later date. Alright guys, that's it for this video. We got the signal switch in and working. So we can't actually really tell you why the signal switch wasn't working. We were doing our electrical tests and it just magically started working because Datsun magic. Datsun magic. But we assume it's something to do with that connector that was going to the signal switch, but we also cleaned everything up and greased it because all that corrosion and rust in the signal switch itself probably didn't help at all. But that's it for this video. We will be back again soon with another Datsun video. Until then, stay classy, crew.